Going to unpack this with Joe Siracusa. He's an author and professor of security and diplomacy at Curtin University, joining us now from Melbourne. Professor, thank you for your time. Havana
Thank you.
syndrome, is this now simply a disease or something more sinister and planned?
Oh, this is not a disease at all. I mean, calling it a disease is a misnomer. That's what you call something you don't want to tell anybody about. The Havana syndrome is really about directed energy at the brain. I mean, this kind of research has been going on since the early 1960s. It's used for dropping in on people's communications, find out what people are doing in embassies and the like, and today it's about surveillance and counter-surveillance. It's at the high end, and this tells us a great deal that directed energy or high energy impulses, microwave impulses, are really about the battlefield of the 21st century. The brain is the battlefield of the 21st century. Can you imagine if you could immobilize an entire company of men somewhere without having to fire a shot? That's what this is all about. So it's about real research, and of course, the United States can't say too much about it because it's conducted its own research, it has its own capabilities, and it has to be very careful who it blames, because if it is true, then it is an act of war, and the bar has to be very high for an act of war. So it's one of these things that the intelligence communities know full well what it is, but they're not quite prepared to share it with their citizens.
All the international community, do they have any idea about who's responsible for this? Is it any particular country, or are there many countries who are looking at working with this type of microwave waves, as you were talking about?
Well, a number of countries have this capability and have been working with it. Look, my money is on the Russian security people, the FSB. Their job is to make life miserable for the American intelligence community. Now, you've mentioned that diplomats and their families have been harmed, but that's simply a casualty. These are bystanders. They're looking at going after the American intelligence community, and in many places they pose as the spies pose as diplomats. So these are not the first order. They're going after the intelligence community, and their job is to disrupt intelligence of the United States, to demoralize staff and that kind of thing. And I'm sure it was the Russians who started this in Cuba and with the Havana syndrome discovery, because the Russians are reestablishing their intelligence presence in Cuba. They're reestablishing all these detectors that could spy on the United States only 90 miles from Florida. So they didn't want the Americans with their counterintelligence capability on the island. So it's pretty clear it's the Russians. Now, why would they do this? Some people suggest that it's a hangover from the Cold War. Well, I'll tell you what, I think the Russian security agencies, the kind that kill their own citizens on British soil, I don't think they really think about the consequences, because they're just going full steam, trying to reestablish their primacy within the Russian military establishment. But, you know, to just sum up here, I don't think there's much of a mystery about this, and my money is on the Russian security agency.
Professor, why do you think it's taken so long for there to be any agreement on if this is an attack or merely an illness, as was originally thought?
Well, in the 70s, we had an American ambassador in the Soviet Union who died shortly after, complaining about these things. And like a good soldier, he went to the grave without making a big fuss about it. See, the problem is that the CIA intelligence people don't want to share this kind of information with the State Department. They think it leaks too much, and they're not the same kind of people. So there's been a lack of sharing intelligence, which gives the impression that this is far more mysterious than it is. And as I say, there were things established in the 1970s and 80s. I've seen some studies that people have tried this themselves to see what they're doing. And of course, these microwaves in the brain then process themselves as noises. There's not a noise in the brain that comes from the actual microwave impulse itself. But in the serious cases, it creates serious damage to the brain because it hits the white matter of the brain that does not repair itself. And there are numerous American diplomats or other casualties who have put in claims with the State Department or with the American government. And President Biden has signed the Havana Act the other day, which allows them to get compensated if their careers are cut short. So the president knows full well what this is about. And of course, some people argue that when people in the embassy come down with this or are afflicted with this, they start to imagine it, this so-called psychogenic impact. People start to imagine they have symptoms that have been explained to other people or other people are trying to explain. And this is not the case at all. Most of these people are true victims. And Americans don't want to talk about this very much. It's about secret research. You know, you don't want to talk about that on the public airwaves. And you certainly can't admit that you are in possession of the same weapon that your enemy is using against your intelligence community, because then you're going to give the game away. So it's a matter of cat and mouse. And the reason it hasn't become more public is because the intelligence community in the United States wanted to make damn sure it didn't become public.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting indeed. Professor Joe Siracusa, always good to speak to you and get your take on this. Thank you so much.